Now, why did I show you the continuation of that battle? Because I wanted to communicate to you the reason that I was foiled, why I was stopped by Ichigo Kurosaki. What was the reason? One, because I let my guard down. Wrong. Two, that the Hogyoku didn't choose me. Wrong. Three, my power was inferior. It was less than that of Ichigo Kurosaki. Also wrong.
Imagine after the end of Bleach, Yhwach is slashed in half, he's defeated, and then the big question finally comes up with, what is Aizen gonna do? Now, in the actual story, we don't see what happens. Aizen just sort of respawns after being absorbed by Yhwach, and that's about it. He seems to comment on things normally, and it's just business as usual. He's gonna go to the Mugen for however long, but what if Aizen said, Ichigo, can you even put me back in there? Like, why am I going back in there? Like, I don't need to do anything you want me to. What did the cast even do, realistically? Could Shunsui, Ichigo, and all these characters actually put him down and put him in there? Like, if he didn't want to? A lot of Aizen's sealing away, or a lot of his actions in the war arc, tend to be really by his own concession. He just allows any punishment to go about him as he tries to dive deep into himself and learn who he is and reflects on his actions. As you just saw in that clip from the Bleach video game that Kubo actually kind of oversaw and worked on here or there, Aizen himself doesn't even think, oh, I lost to Ichigo because I was weaker, blah, 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 or because I dropped my guard or anything. He seems to comment about how it was a character flaw, which most people that read Bleach will talk about. Now, I've gone over a lot about Aizen in 2 videos, Clyde and I, Clyde being here for this video as well, why not? We've gone over pretty much everything, you know, Aizen versus 99% of fiction, why most people can't deal with his immortality, his mind hacks, adaptation, went over Aizen versus JJK, but this video will be more about Aizen versus Bleach characters, because during those videos, a lot of comments really caught my attention, and they kept saying, oh, Aizen's weaker than Ichigo. You know, Ichigo could probably put down Aizen. A lot of people question Aizen's immortality. They're kind of confused about certain lore points or statements around him. They don't really understand a lot about him. Now, I'm not going to make the claim that Aizen, you know, could solo all of Bleach per se, but he's definitely a character that a lot of people misconstrue, because he's a character that even versus Ichigo, while he's screaming his brains out like he's enraged Cell versus Gohan, is not actually being that honest about what he says. Let alone Aizen in the chair, who is more curious about what's going to happen and what people think about him and will do with him than actually proving he's stronger anymore, because he doesn't care about it anymore. So in this video, there's just so many things to go over with the intricacies of the scaling when it comes to the top tiers, as well as a lot of Aizen's character that kind of makes him say certain things that are tongue-in-cheek. And this will go over like a lot of Shunsui's dialogue with him, things that don't make sense. And honestly, it's a very important video to make. I don't think it will be the same as just Aizen versus 99% of fiction, because we have to go very, very in-depth with Bleach versus Bleach scaling. So I hope you enjoy. And with that, I'll let Clyde kind of start basically more so with Ichigo versus Aizen. As Ichigo, he's really the only character that's actually strong enough to fight him that's alive, so that will be the main focus of this video. We'll kind of be explaining Ichigo versus Aizen, probably the title of the video as well, but it will be sort of like a big dissection on Aizen's narrative and a lot of his interactions with the other characters and what he should realistically be.
Yeah, so I guess a large thing to try to articulate in this video is about where does Aizen actually scale, because the finale of Bleach does hinder around the main 3 big dogs being Yhwach, Ichigo, and Aizen. And it seems to be the case that when there is this hypothetical topic brought up about, well, could Ichigo actually beat Aizen at the end of the story versus the Dangai fights or prior interactions? And I think there's a lot of this passive scaling that's going on in the series, which is completely overlooked because they're both fighting Yhwach, who is in a whole different caliber to the rest of the cast, and it kind of overshines how strong Aizen really is in that moment. Now, there's a lot of stuff we can go through, like, for example, I think by now it's kind of common knowledge, especially after how in-depth I went with my Captain Aizen video, that Captain Aizen, before any of the transformations, is regarded as one of the strongest Shinigami, just full stop. Kubo even implies that Unohana wouldn't have been able to deal with him. That's the caliber he's in. He's always hyped up with having high spiritual pressure. He's always hyped up as being so strong that he could just solo all the Espada. It's not even debatable. Even Gin hypes it up in a monologue that has no relevance to speaking to any of the other characters. So it's like, why is he lying in his own brain? Why is he saying this just for the sake of saying it? Like, he's hyping up Aizen for pretty much no reason if you think it was said to somehow divert attention. Because what happens afterwards is Aizen just solos all the Shinigami as those statements are being made to really like solidify that, yo, the Kyoka Suigetsu is a very dangerous technique, but it isn't just that. It's the fact that he's so strong with just his tank of power, generally speaking, that one of the only characters that narratively causes him a problem or any form of doubt is the head captain who wields the most destructive Zanpakuto in the entire series.
Yeah, and obviously that ability too is like, Aizen's just like, yeah, this guy's 2,000 years old, just been constantly honing his Bankai, like that thing's crazy. And Gin's monologue to himself is very interesting because he's monologuing because he is the one with the most potential out of anyone, and he is basing all his potential as a Shinigami, other than Ichigo probably, but he's basing all his potential as a Shinigami in that moment to kill Aizen. So he's just watching him his whole life. He's trying to compare him to other people, think about ways to take him down. He wants to be the snake that kills this god character, catch him off guard. He wants to be the one to put him down. Like, that's his prey, right? And so when Gin finally, pops the bubble and he stabs Aizen while transcendent, then Aizen's like, yeah, now I can surpass all the Shinigami. So Gin's monologue also is like very important. That's just Captain Aizen. And it would be very strange just to say like, oh, Zero Division is just like way, way stronger than Yamamoto, and that Aizen isn't even comparable or something like that. Personally speaking, I think Aizen would annihilate Shunsui even in Bankai, no diff. I think Yamamoto, if he's at full power, would. The Yamamoto versus Yhwach apparently is like, he's more nerfed than we thought because it's not just his arm is gone, so he can't swing with both hands. It's also, his Reiatsu, his spiritual pressure is actually leaking through his body. It can't be controlled right because, your spiritual control is in your wrists, comes out your arms. That's why, Urahara put those bracelets on Aizen when he was so powerful to try to control him. Kubo kind of revealed that. So Yamamoto is actually way more nerfed than we thought. He's still stronger than every captain. 13 blades, he stated to be stronger than Unohana still, even with like this huge nerf. So Aizen and Yamamoto are way above Shunsui. Aizen's debating if he could beat him in a fight. These characters are next level, and then Aizen gets like 5 levels of transcendence to the point where he becomes Super Saiyan God and no one can sense his power level anymore. Even like strong captains that might have been able to somewhat sense him or push him a little bit before, even remotely, whether you think Isshin can or not. I think obviously Isshin's dealing with an Aizen that's falling apart and can't use his full power. But, if you do think that, then that's something to consider. And then Aizen gets all of these evolutions to and these evolutions are no joke. Even one evolution is just making him incomprehensible. And then he just keeps doing it over and over and over again. And then it takes Ichigo with all his potential, also then sacrificing all that potential on some god from Hunter x Hunter to then put down Aizen with his Mugetsu. And then Aizen survives. Aizen is then dialoguing in these like Kubo-approved dialogues and games. I wasn't even weaker than him. I just genuinely didn't want to win. Ichigo says the same thing. Aizen gets eviscerated by the strongest attack in the series, comes back to life. He's like, oh, well, I'm just going to do the same thing now, Ichigo. What are you going to do now? Ho ho. And then he gets sealed while probably willingly. Let's just be honest. He probably willingly gets sealed. He's just LARPing. And that's kind of weirdly confirmed. And then, in his chair state, he actually fuses with his Zanpakuto completely, so he undergoes another evolution. So he actually does undergo the evolution he talked about with Ichigo. He's like, I'm going to become one with my Zanpakuto like you did. He literally does, right? So he does actually do what he said. And then he gets strapped to a chair, and they're like, this guy might be stronger than he was before. And it's like, what? What do you mean you're stronger than before? And this Aizen, the entire time, he is never using his full power. Shunsui is coming down into the Muken, and he's like, I'm going to remove some of your seals. And he's like, oh, really? Which ones? And then Aizen removed a bunch of seals by himself, right? And then Shunsui's like, I didn't touch those ones. Yeah, I'll just remove this one that doesn't matter. Yeah, you're good to go. Showing Aizen the entire time might have just been able to kind of unwrap himself over time if he wanted to. So even this BDSM gimp suit he's wearing, he might have just been able to get out of it the whole time, like just bit by bit. If he can get out of a piece of it while fully nerfed, then why can't he get out of another piece of of it while less nerfed. It just doesn't make sense. He can clearly just unwrap himself more and more over time. And that's why Shunsui's like, yeah, well, you got it, bro. Your finger's unlocked now. You know, that was the whole point of the dialogue. And then Aizen comes to the war while still nerfed. His spiritual pressure is still holding to his body. You think Yamamoto missing an arm was a nerf? Dude, Aizen's spiritual pressure is glued to his body. He can't even like exhibit it properly. Most of the time, he can't even move. And then when he's fighting Yhwach's like, yeah, I cracked your Kyoka Suigetsu. His Shikai? You cracked his Shikai? So it's like, what is Aizen holding? Is he still have this Bankai move? Like he can pull out? You cracked his Shikai. That's what Yhwach says. His Gimp Suit Shikai is what he cracked that was giving him problems the whole time. That's making him comparable to Ichigo. So that's sort of like the route I would go right off the bat, but I'll kind of let you get into your idea with the scaling.
And that's something I've always said for a very long time when you mentioned the Shikai point there. Two major things I'd put emphasis on is that while it's true the characters who speak about his seals are mostly placing emphasis on the fact that it's restricting his powers towards his body, the other major point is that it's still inhibiting his ability to have complete freedom when battling Yhwach, and keep this in mind, he's stepping straight into the octagon after spending 2 years strapped to a wall. Nothing about this interaction is optimal in showcasing Aizen's true potential in this moment. What Seth said too about the whole fusing with the blade thing is a very overlooked part of his character. Right before he gets sealed by Urahara's seal, he states to Ichigo, he's like, I've hit a level where I don't even need a Zanpakuto anymore because it's now become one with his being. It's more of like a narrative thing going on in Bleach where, you know, to truly understand oneself or to become closer to your Zanpakuto, whether it's through meditation or training, you know, you don't necessarily even need to wield an external extra piece. It's now a part of you. And that would make sense why, out of nowhere, he just whips out a Zanpakuto. Like, was that with him in the Mugen? No, it was inside of his body, hence why he can cast Kyoka Suigetsu on Yhwach earlier in the war. Now, the thing that is really, really OP about Aizen is that there are interactions earlier in the story that show how strong he is compared to the rest of the cast. Like during the Soul Society arc, and I need to backtrack here with the scaling to give a bit of perspective. A lot of this has been explained in prior videos, but just to like further illustrate how strong he really is. During the Soul Society arc, Ichigo looks at him and he's like, this dude is like 2 times the strength of a captain. He just one-shot Komamura. What the hell? Like, that's right in front of him. He's blown away by that concept. Further into the series, to control the Hogyoku, you would need to basically have that of 2 times the spiritual pressure of a captain, okay? That's very casual for him. Later on, he is narratively compared to Yamamoto being like his only narrative threat in his mind that he's worried about. Enough to make contingency plans, enough to invent Wonderwise to, you know, sort of deal with him and seal his Zanpakuto, etc, etc. Now here is where it gets crazy. The Silver Surfer Aizen, that was where he had hit that Yamamoto Bankai slash, like, you know, highest level of Shinigami in the series, and that's really overlooked because you need to hear this out really clear. He does obviously hype himself up with a lot of these flowery statements like, you know, oh, I've surpassed all Shinigami, I've broken the barrier, etc, etc. But the fact of the matter is, he truly does in just those first few forms. He literally fights Urahara, Isshin, and Yoruichi all at the same time, and none of them can not only sense him, but they can't even properly damage him when he fights all out. There is a scene where Yoruichi does smash into his Hogyoku kind of hero that he has on him, which it's not hollow powers, he does clarify that too, but she essentially hits him off guard, like slams like a million punches into his back, but then when he gets up and he actually flexes his spiritual pressure, he one-taps every single one of them, just casually. Now, you guys need to have this as kind of an idea in your mind going forward, because he then transforms like 3 more times, and then gets sealed by Urahara after being hit by, according to the data books, the strongest thing in the whole series at that time being the Mugetsu. So not only does he get smashed around by Dangai Ichigo, then eventually he starts evolving to a level where he can damage him, which is quite surprising. But then the Mugetsu hits him, again, strongest attack in the series at that point, 7 echelons above all of the captains combined and Yamamoto, which is very wild. I do feel like there's a lot of like focus that needs to be put on how strong Dangai and Mugetsu is. But anywho, Aizen is hit by that attack. It doesn't take him out of the battle. He then revives, claims he's going to transform again, but because he's so low in spiritual pressure and damage, because it does take time to reform, he literally just got hit by an attack, which in his brain, he thinks the only way to describe it is, yeah, he's probably on a different plane of power than I am, being like dimensional scaling. You don't have to take it as literal, but that's how he describes it, right? It's pretty important because it's inner dialogue from his perspective. He regenerates after that, and then goes to transform again, gets sealed. 2 years go by, Urahara sees him as they bring him out in the chair, and he fires off an attack into the sky to deal with the Mimihagi eyeballs coming down and so on. And then Urahara's like, yo, he might be stronger than he was against Ichigo, which is kind of funny because we don't know if he can fully sense him, but being arguably the smartest character in the whole series, he's one of the characters I would take that as matter of fact from, right?
He's deducing it based off of the Kurohitsugi as well. And what's probably being said is Chair Aizen just casually threw out a Kurohitsugi as strong as the one Aizen used against Ichigo without an incantation. So he's probably like, yeah, he's probably stronger than he was before, right? That's probably like the idea that he's given, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, that would be his natural assessment of the Kido, and that's why the clarification I was trying to make is that even if he can't sense him, he would be the best character or position of authority to say that. Kind of imagine that in this instance, Mr. Kubo is using Urahara as a narrator for the scene and to illustrate the power scaling.
Think about it this way. If Aizen was like watching a character and he's like, yeah, that guy's stronger than he was before, like, would you believe him? It's like, yeah, well, Urahara is smarter than Aizen, you know, so it's like...
Exactly. Yeah, so that'd be the best one to go with. Obviously, like, a lot of that scaling, at least to Seth and I, like, it seems simplistic. It seems like it's common sense. For certain people, it's not, but I just think the best way to sort of showcase it is this, right? If you need to really understand how powerful Aizen is when he returns, you can swap Shunsui with Aizen, right? Just Captain Aizen in the battle against Lilybaro, and he probably performs better. And it's not like probably like, wait, you're trying to say Shunsui might be stronger. It's like, even just from a raw power standpoint, he would be a problem against Lilybaro. And then when it comes to his Kyoka Suigetsu in that battle, he's very likely going to win with that too. Plus, he wields like every single Kido in the series. I actually talked a bit about this in my Aizen video, how he could use his Kurohitsugi to like bend time and space and pretty much like flatten him out and, you know, pull all his photons apart and use, you know, you guys get how it works. It could scientifically work in his favor with those abilities against someone like Lilybaro, who's an intangible sort of light-based Quincy. But the thing about him is he's a Star Knight Quincy. He's one of the top-tier guards of Yhwach, and this guy scales to Squad 0. And some might even say stronger in individual fights against some of them too, unless you count how hack Senjumara is with her abilities. But strictly power speaking, he is in that caliber. Now, when Aizen comes back against Yhwach, not only is he stronger than all the prior stuff we just said, but he's one of the only characters that genuinely looks at Soul King Yhwach and he's like, I'm not scared of this guy at all. I'm just going to brawl with him straight away. And I think that already is a sign of confidence and strength that not many other characters can say. Like when Ichigo approaches Yhwach as he's in his sort of like castle chilling on his chair, it's not like they're going in there very excited to battle him. They're quite intimidated, and he does have Orihime behind him, assisting him as they go into that room. She's going to be his backup to shield him throughout the fight. As they begin that battle, it is very much the case that Yhwach is incredibly curious of what Ichigo can actually do in that confrontation, because he does verbally state, I'm not exactly going to use the Almighty right now, like I'm going to see what you can do. He's very interested, right? And they have their battle, and Ichigo does quite good. He's one of the only characters who can really fight a character of this tier and truly swap blades with them and not be, you know, like getting one-shotted. But as the battle progresses, he starts getting beaten pretty badly, and then he has to awaken his transformation into the Horn of Salvation full hollow mode, and his most potent attack that he does land on Yhwach doesn't actually kill Yhwach. And I think this is very important because I'll sort of let you take over from here, but as we get to the idea of where they all stack up in power, I think there's gonna be a problem when you match up Ichigo versus Aizen, where I don't believe there is any attack in Ichigo's arsenal that is going to be able to rid Aizen from the battle.
Let's just go over the first point. Aizen would have beaten Dangai Ichigo 1v1. That's the big thing. Even while LARPing, even while wanting to lose, he would have beaten Ichigo 1v1. Ichigo is the strongest force in the series, gets like a transcendent buff over him, still can't beat him, okay? That's the first thing. Now the next thing is this. Is the difference between Ichigo and Aizen really that crazy in the war arc? And the thing is that Aizen might be a little bit tougher than Ichigo in that he does more. he's also probably suppressed. Who knows if he has some type of Bankai full power move, right? We have no idea. The gap between Aizen and Ichigo, if anything, it's way less in Ichigo's favor than it was in Dangai. In Dangai, he could like manhandle him. He was manhandling him. He could just grab him by the face. He'd parry every one of his attacks and cut through him easily. Even that wasn't enough. He just starts adapting. So what do you think is going to happen when you have ungimped War Arc Aizen potentially could multiply his power more? We have no idea if he has a Bankai like that or not. I mean, he should have a Bankai, but you know what I mean? Like, is he really just Shikaiing it out the entire time? You know, is he like some kind of transcendent god mode? And it's like, does Ichigo even have the capability to actually erase him like that? Like, are they not just more relative? Like, at worst, is Aizen just not getting kind of like chopped through, like in one attack, like Yhwach did, and then he's just gonna reform? Like, is Ichigo really gonna like eviscerate him like Mugetsu did? No. And then while they're fighting, Aizen's also just going to grow stronger, even if it was a problem. The other problem is this. If Aizen's bloodlusted, he casts Kyoka on Ichigo. He just does. The other thing, too, is Ichigo wouldn't even expect him to do it. He'd think Aizen doesn't want to do it. So if they're bloodlusted, it's over. He could look at any part of his body, he's going to cast it on him. And he can cast it on people stronger than himself. So now it's just completely fucked. People that think that they're stronger than Aizen think it's a huge problem. Even Yamamoto's like getting stabbed in the gut to try to like get hits on Aizen while potentially way stronger than him in that.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I actually made that a big point in my Aizen video where I'm like, pretty much like Yamamoto was risking getting beheaded just because he's like, all right, realistically, the only way I'm going to catch this little is I need him to stab me. Like, he needs to stab me so I can grab him and I'll know it's the real him. That was a gamble.
Yeah.
Like, he could have died in that interaction.
And that's like thousands of years of experience. Like, Yamamoto's like way more experienced than like 16, 17-year-old Ichigo who's like fought for like a couple years, okay? Like, that Yamamoto's next level combatant compared to Ichigo. So who knows if Ichigo would even come up with that. You know what I mean?
Also, to add to your point, he did manage to fool Yhwach. And I think what is really important about this is that Ichigo has been shown in countless battles to be surprised by verbal interactions. All Aizen has to do is mislead him with a single sentence, and then Ichigo's not going to realize, wait, I've been looking at his body this whole time, and now I'm under Kyoka Suigetsu. It happened to Yhwach. Yhwach went in there thinking they would have a calm little conversation, then he got Discord gooned, and he's like, wait, what the f***? Like, I'm under... Like, he realized afterwards, thanks to Hushwolf being like, yo, do you realize what time it is right now? Like, we need to go. And then he monologues, that Aizen, he must have did something when I met him. And it's like, that's how simple it was. It was just that simple interaction before he got the Almighty. The same thing in a bloodlusted actual fight to the death will happen to Ichigo. And that is what makes it so difficult in general going forward, because once he's under it, okay, well, then it is a power struggle, but he's very likely going to get killed. I don't think intelligence-wise he has the fortitude to deal with an actual really nasty, I want to kill you kind of Aizen.
Other thing, too, is, like, you can tell by Yhwach's mannerisms, his opinions, the way he talks to Aizen. He actually respects Aizen as a powerful combatant. He's like, are you really going to get in my way? Blah, blah, blah. Like, you can tell that there's somewhat of a respect for Aizen's power, showing he actually is on that capable tier. So it's like, it's not like Aizen is just, like, inferior to Ichigo and Yhwach somehow. He's clearly on that level, okay? Like, they're...
At the start of the war arc in the anime, they actually add, like, further dialogue to their interaction. Like, he tries to recruit Aizen to join him at the very start, and then he makes a statement where he's like, yeah, killing you would be like next to impossible, or like a major pain in the ass, and that's an assessment based on an idea of what he thinks, you know, Aizen is. He doesn't like fully understand the complete comprehension of Aizen's power, but at the end of the day, like, not only does he respect him, but he thinks that it would be difficult to just deal with him because of his immortality, which Kubo even said recently with some more recent statements too, like the immortality. We're going to go into it a bit more in a second, but there is a lot of significant highlighting being put onto that aspect of him where he actually retains that immortality, whether or not he has or hasn't got the Hogyoku. Like, it's now an inherent ability that was granted to him permanently.
Yhwach also, like, smiles and seems like it's gonna be fun. Like, when he starts going insane, he almost, like, views Aizen's interaction as interesting, like, fighting him. So there's really, like, there's no reason Aizen's not on that tier, obviously. The only thing I can think about is just more so, why do people even think he could even put down Aizen at all? And a lot of people think he could kill Aizen. Like, a lot of people think Aizen can get killed by, like, their attacks or whatever. And no, Ichigo doesn't have the firepower to kill Aizen at all. And this is going to be like a bigger section of the video, but we'll go over some misconceptions about Aizen's immortality real quick. The first one is this, you know, Urahara's like, it would take too long to kill you. so we're gonna lock you away. And then Mayuri says they have no weapon to kill Aizen, period. So why is Urahara saying it would take too long? And then Mayuri says, nah, there's no way. Well, the difference between Mayuri and Urahara is that Urahara made the Hogyoku, so he knows how it works. So Urahara, the basically pioneer and creator of it, is saying it would be too hard to kill you because he would have to come up with some way to remove it from him because he knows how it works. So he might have a methodology of removing it or creating something specifically to negate its powers. That's what Urahara's probably talking about. He's not talking about like, yeah, we're gonna scourge Aizen in the chair until he bleeds out and dies or something. That's not what he's talking about. Because otherwise, Mayuri wouldn't say it's impossible to kill him. Mayuri's the one sealing them to the chair. Mayuri's definitely next in line for most intelligent in that whole verse. So it's like, if Mayuri's saying there's no weapon, there's nothing they can do while he's sealed up and that chair can't move, then that makes sense. Then that leads into this statement where Aizen's like, when he gets knocked out, he starts talking to Shunsui and he's like, that was your perfect opportunity to kill me. I swear to you guys, everyone just doesn't read the next panel right after this. It's so crazy. Just read the next 2 panels. Shunsui is like, if it was that easy, I would have just done it. I want to kill you right away, And then Aizen's just like, he just smirks because he's like, the whole interaction between Shunsui and Aizen is Aizen doesn't like how he can't really manipulate Shunsui to do what he wants. He wants to always like enrage him or get him to act certain ways or figure him out. And you always notice Aizen's like, yeah, you're a very insufferable man, blah, blah, blah. And it's because Aizen's tricks don't really work on Shunsui. And Shunsui is the type of character, even in Karakura Town, where when Aizen's talking, Shunsui's like, yeah, can I kill Aizen here? And he tries to catch him off guard with his ability. So Shunsui's the number one contender when it comes to like, yeah, if I can kill you, I'm gonna go for it, right? Even like if Aizen's yapping, like, can I kill him right now? Is he yapping? Like, I'm gonna go get him. And then Aizen's like, hey, Shunsui, just let me talk, bro. Like, and then he's like, you're so annoying. And so Aizen's interactions with Shunsui are always based on that. Even when he removes the seals, he's like, oh, are you gonna remove the rest of my seals? Like, how do you feel about that? It's literally just verbatim him seeing what Shunsui really thinks about him and what Shunsui's like. He wants to understand Shunsui. So Aizen saying like, yeah, you could kill me if you wanted to right now. He's like, it's just a bait to see if Shunsui would believe it or try it. And then Shunsui's like, yeah, no, we can't. Mayuri then says, yeah, no, we can't. And he's the one who literally strapped Aizen up in that chair, seals his spiritual pressure, knows all this thing. Yeah, he's like, nah. And then Urahara just says, yeah, it might be possible because he understands how his immortality even works. And he's like, I might be able to find a way to deconstruct it, right? Not just throw a nuclear bomb at him and eviscerate him from reality or something like. And it's usually cope. Because people want characters just to be able to like just punch Aizen to death or something stupid like he's Majin Buu. It just doesn't work that way at all.
His immortality becomes more and more refined too as he gets to those final transformations against Ichigo. It's like really crystal clear based on the dialogue from all the characters that discuss him. Like Mayuri basically, he's like, we don't have like a weapon in the Soul Society that can deal with you. You're immortal. That's why you're strapped to the chair. Shunsui's like, if I could, I would. Believe me, I would. And he was the character that, as Seth said, was consistently during the Karakura Town conflict, was off guard trying to slash his head off multiple times. And also along with that, he like was vocally saying, he's like, yeah, I don't like listening to men talk that long. I'm gonna kill you. Like he had zero interest in playing his games, and it's pretty crystal clear while he needed him for the war, he does state very clear, we can't kill you. And that's why he's put into the Mugen anyway. If you're placed into the Mugen, it's because you're an immortal being. Central 46 is so pissed with Aizen, with all the stuff he's done, that just by him talking while getting sentenced, they slap like an extra couple thousand years of sentencing onto it because they know that they can't kill him. Like he genuinely cannot be dealt with. It's actually really wild when you consider that there was probably thoughts of like, what if we strap him right to a wall and we just like slap him with the with the Hogyoku over and over, like use it at full power. It wouldn't deal with him. Like inherently, it just wouldn't kill him.
Even the Zero Division are like, oh, we hate him. Like, and none of them thought they could just go down there, power null him, and then kill him or something. It's just not. There's nothing.
In the manga, I believe it is Senjumaru. She states that like their perspective on Aizen is that like he is true evil because he tried to attain, like a breaking barrier of power that would try to like ascend to their level and come and deal with them, and they viewed that as a very big threat, even just mentally speaking. So the immortality just in general too. This would be a good way to sort of articulate this, right? So when Ichigo slashes Soul King Yhwach, and he does sort of like in his face, he's like, all right, here's a Getsuga. But then in like a split second, he's like, by the way, it's combined with a Grom Ray Zero slash. And then like Yhwach's like, like he gets like split in half, revives afterwards, whatever. That attack like has like a measurable difference where we could like appeal to the data books. It could be 5 to 10 times of a flat increase. It could be higher. The problem with like the level of attack that it would take to kill Aizen, and I'm going to use that term very, very loosely here, quotation marks, kill, is that even if Ichigo was to do that to Aizen, right, he faces off and he gets a clean, simple hit where he slashes him in half, it wouldn't even kill Aizen, because we've seen in a battle that was more sort of like comprehensively comparable in certain forms, being that, you know, at first Dangai shit-stomped Butterfly Aizen. He very clearly wasn't intimidated by Alien Aizen. The only sort of success on Aizen's behalf was the Fragor attack that did damage him, so they're relative there, right? But Aizen sees in his brain, he's like, I still can't sense this guy, even this whole time I can't sense him. Ichigo transforms into the Mugetsu, and it's in his brain on again, I said this earlier, on a different plane of power. Data books hype it up really, really, really big. It's genuinely like 7 layers of power stronger than someone like a Shunsui or a Yamamoto, who, by the way, those guys don't get stronger over the time skip, so keep this in mind for framing here. He gets hit by that attack. Not only does it fully eradicate him from existence and to the point where he's gone, because Ichigo's surprised when he hears him fall to the ground and then start automatically healing, but that attack, which is at a higher gap than the Gronray Getsuga Tensho slash that was used against Yhwach, even that gap in power, it couldn't kill him. Now, it could harm him, but it couldn't remove him from the battlefield. And another example that gets shown in a very similar manner of a really high tier power used on Aizen that can't get rid of him is when Yhwach goes absolutely crazy at the end of the series and starts like threatening to destroy all the universes as he's waving his hand around. He forcefully absorbs Aizen, removes him from the battlefield, but after the series, it's just like, boop, he's just back again. Like, he's just back. Like, he just can't be taken out. And this is a Yhwach, which I really need to emphasize this. It isn't just like Yhwach going all out with his powers. This is Yhwach where he's been injected with the power of the Soul King. He has access to literally the strongest being in the whole series. And even if he doesn't have access to all of his weird powers, like, you know, the stillness and all these weird, like, hacks abilities he has, like the extra, there's like an eye related ability which goes even beyond the Almighty and so on, like all these other powers, right? The reality is that he gets the power increase, like just the flat spiritual pressure. That still can't even kill Aizen. Like, the way that Kubo tries to articulate the immortality in Bleach and just like portray it to us is that it isn't just, oh, you're just healing like Noyatora or like any of the Espada can where they lose an arm and it comes back. It's like, no, this is fully like, you can't even conceptually remove this dude from existence in Bleach. He will just come back all the time.
Yeah, and the other thing about Yhwach is that Yhwach is absorbing the Soul King, who generated like all of these souls in the verse. You know, could be the progenitor of like even blanks that create like the Senna verse, you know, or, you know, Senna's feats. And, you know, the Soul King itself is sort of like an Abrahamic knockoff where he was originally supposed to be called like the name of the Abrahamic god. And then in the anime, they kind of clarify like, yeah, here's Yhwach, the son and the father in this primordial sea before anything was made, before time, space, all these universes were made. And then the Soul King, Adonai, would then define all these concepts, all these souls, he'd inject it into the world. And then the point of Aizen is like, he wants to contend with that. Okay, he's like, he wants to contend with the Soul King. He doesn't like what the Soul Society did to him. He doesn't like how people are using his power. And so when he sees the Cleaner coming, you know, it's something that defies or like is beyond reason and laws and natural laws. He's like, I need to slam this thing. I'm going to destroy it because I'm above these natural concepts and laws. So when Yhwach gets sort of this authority type power from the Soul King, something even above the idea of concept naming or power nulling or, you know, probably many concepts that exist in that verse. Even death might be one of the concepts in that verse that was created, right? They might have created the concept of death in that verse. That might not have even existed before. Aizen's like, I am above your laws. I'm above the concepts and bindings of this reality. Therefore, it's not going to kill me. Nothing you do will kill me. So even when Yhwach is like, yeah, it's going to take forever to kill you, even when Soul King challenges him and absorbs him, he doesn't just get erased, bro. He just comes back. Like, even then, right? Even after getting eradicated by this being who defined their existence, you know, not in its entirety. He's not complete Soul King, but, you know, you get the idea. Like, this is still very significant, and he still comes back.
Yeah, what you said is really good too, because I'm thinking about Yhwach, and something that's really, like, it's inherent with his being is that he can't really be killed, like, similarly to, he continuously, throughout history will keep self-reviving and getting stronger because of the whole, like, you know, if you interact with him, he will gain powers. Well, you know, like, he takes away your life force, he ends up becoming fully revived. That's sort of his backstory, and he's just like this eternally existing entity. And then with Aizen's immortality, it's sort of in that similar regard of, he doesn't revive the same way, but he just flat out will just come back, like, infinitely. And then the theory with Urahara is that he thinks that he's gotten stronger. So either he did complete that next transformation, which was hinted at the end of the Dangai Ichigo battle, or he just, while sitting there and meditating and just chilling, like, he did actually passively get stronger. So you've got a being that all around in Bleach cannot be killed by any of the attacks, but can just continuously get stronger. This would also, like, tie into his character a lot too. Seth and I have had a lot of conversations about this, like, off videos where we've just talked in private about how, like, Aizen's character becomes a bit zen and calm once he reaches immortality, because he almost becomes sort of like the third cog in the wheel of the world, where he's separated from the life-death cycle. And this would explain why he acts so differently afterwards, and he's kind of content with the idea of subtleties, like, would I like to breathe the air of the Soul Society? Like, Aizen before that would have never gave a fuck about that stuff. Like, he's way more focused on his goal back then, no matter what. But this Aizen, he's a lot more like, I've had time to think about these things. And again, just to come full circle once more with the immortality, the only sort of thing you can really do to him, which we have seen, is like, yeah, a character that's significantly stronger can sort of like remove him from the battlefield, but he's never truly defeated. Even the Urahara sealing, the only reason that even worked straight out of Urahara's mouth is because Ichigo had lowered his powers to a level where he could be sealed, and then they strapped him to a chair where 24/7 his powers are being sucked out of him so that he can't, you know, like, just flex and go crazy with it. Or at the very least, it's like the power is restricted towards him. That's the purpose. It's like, all right, listen, we can't deal with you, but we will put you in a position where you just can't move or do anything with your powers. You're just eternally strapped there. So I hope that, like, really explains the immortality part. I mean, these characters have gotten to a stage which, we've talked about this a lot in prior videos, but these characters have reached like these levels of power where it far exceeds, you know, who can slash and move faster, where they are going beyond conceptual stuff like, you know, I can take away or give you the value of a name. I can fully remove the concept of you having a voice. Watch out for that being, you know, it doesn't attack with spiritual pressure, it's a being of reason. And then Aizen's like, I defy that natural order, you know, I'm beyond the logic of this verse.
断りとは断りにすがらねば生きていけぬ者のためにあるのだ。
Even at that level of power, there's characters in Bleach that wouldn't be able to get rid of him. And the biggest example is Yhwach with the Soul King. Arguably the strongest character in the series other than this hypothetical Prime Soul King. So I think whenever you do see people discuss the immortality, they are severely not only downplaying, but they're looking at it through a lens which isn't true to the reality of the character we've actually been shown in the series.
Yeah, I think at the best, the type of immortality Aizen has is he'd probably need something more like, you need something that can kill immortal beings in particular, like, think of like a Sekiro Mortal Blade. Not saying that that would kill him, but, you know, the idea is that the slash just kills even beings that can infinitely regenerate, right? It just somehow deals death to them or gives it to them. You know, maybe like a black blade from Malekith that, like, injects your body with the concept of death. Maybe like a higher dimensional tier of like existence erasure. You might be able to say like, oh, does Aizen have resistance to that type? Can he be, you know, can he resist being erased on a 5th dimensional level? You know, like maybe not. Maybe you might be able to argue something weird like that rhetorically. I don't think it really makes a lot of sense, but, you know, it's at least something to work with, right? There's other abilities, you know, such as Shiki in Fate, where she has the mystic eyes, which can just target your very concept of death or, you know, grant it to you. She'd be able to kill the Hogyoku, as an example. She'd be able to target the Hogyoku and kill it, even if it doesn't have the ability to die. So there are some weird fictional abilities that definitely could kill him. He is mainly a character that should be sealed. I think that's the most like conventional way to go about it. But Ichigo doesn't have any of these things. And even if you just want to argue he's just gonna whoop on him, like KO him or something, he doesn't even have the power to really do that. Like at best, it's gonna be like Dangai versus Butterfly Aizen, you know, where he's like chopping him up, like beating him up, and then he's just regenerating and adapting, you know what I mean? While Aizen then casts Kyoka, becomes infinitely slippery, and then, you know, probably grow stronger. Maybe he has his Bankai amp, who knows. So it's just a terrible matchup. It's so terrible. I think that's really just the most significant part of the video. Now, there are some other weird things to talk about. I think as like a kind of a closing note, there are some weird statements where Shunsui kind of comments on it. Like, yeah, we shouldn't have Ichigo and Aizen meet. Aizen might be able to make his hollow go crazy and like freak out and like go run wild and stuff like that. But I'm sure you have your own opinions about that.
You know, really added to what you were saying before about, you know, how you would even deal with an Aizen, whether it's like the ceiling stuff or, you know, you'd need a character like a Superman who can tussle with his very concept of death and defeat it. You know, like you're looking at that sort of annoying tier of ability to deal with that sort of immortality that he has. Aizen in general, when you think about the very matchup itself, it's always been really crystal clear throughout the whole series that Aizen situationally just chose to not ever go out of his way to really use the Kyoka Suigetsu on Ichigo, which is also a reflection of the fact that I think he wants to have a true interaction with Ichigo. Not only is he curious of him scientifically, which is said multiple times from the flashbacks where he's surprised that the Hollow wanted to mold with the Quincy, to the video game saying that he's very, like, you know, curious about his evolutionary capability, to, you know, the fact that Ichigo's like the only person where someone could truly feel that loneliness through the blade. Like, that was the only person who actually realized, wait, this dude isn't like what we think he is. If he ever casts Kyoka Suigetsu on Ichigo at all, it really is GG from there. But when we talk about straight up power too, there is no gap between them that is significant at all. It's arguable back and forth. Like, you could lean towards the Getsuga Granrei Sero is probably more potent than any of Aizen's singular attacks. You could say that. Or you could say, what about the fact that Aizen just straight up approaches Soul King Yhwach and wants to fight him one-on-one? Sure, he doesn't win, just like Ichigo doesn't win, but he seems to be a lot more confident. He's also at a disadvantage because he just jumps straight out of prison to fight him while still having the seals on him. So we have a very comparable battle where it will literally either get won via Kyoka Suigetsu, or it will get won by the fact that Ichigo will eventually run out of spiritual pressure and will just be beaten in that sort of, you know, a battle of who can last the longest. And then if Aizen can evolve too, depending on if he has access to that sort of ability, which there are things that imply he does, as stated earlier in the video, if he can get stronger in the battle, it just leans towards his favor. And then when it comes to immortality, there isn't a single attack that Ichigo has in his arsenal to defeat him. This is way more of a hairy situation because it would just be a replication of the Dangai Ichigo versus Aizen fight, but this time Urahara wouldn't pull up to save him. He would be cooked. Like, Aizen would just return again after some sort of, like, quote, fatal attack. He revives and then he just out-staminas Ichigo and wins. And I think that the amount of downplay towards the one character, which even helped them defeat Yhwach, it doesn't even make any narrative sense to have such like a perspective on Aizen that he wouldn't be as strong or stronger or win the encounter. I think stylistically it's a terrible matchup. I think stylistically it's always been shown to us that Aizen is a major problem for someone like Ichigo. It is very similar to the fact that while Shinji does hype up Grimmjow's, you know, power in their battle to the degree where Grimmjow's like, nah, fuck this, I'm gonna release and fight this dude, I'm gonna tear his head off. The reality is that if he uses Shikai, he just loses. He has no counter to the ability. Like, what does Ichigo do to Kyoka Suigetsu? Nothing. What does he do when he keeps reviving and he runs out of power because he only has a certain amount of Getsugas he can fire and his hollow form is not even fully perfected yet? And even if it was, doesn't make a difference. He just runs out of stamina, gets beaten, and then Aizen wins. And I don't think that's like a controversial take to have. I think Aizen, his arsenal within the series and in cross-verse matchups, he's actually a gigantic problem for a lot of characters.
Yeah, he would have won the first interaction, full power, War Arc Aizen, he's going to win the second interaction. Of course, the anime might give us new stuff. Maybe we'll see more about Bankai from Ichigo, but then again, probably going to see more about Aizen too. Let's just be straight up honest. They're going to extend both fights more than likely. But we'll see how the anime goes, but I think even if it was stated Ichigo was stronger than Aizen, just wouldn't even matter. That doesn't even mean
it really doesn't matter. And then it's like, what, do we grant him? So a theory that is quite common in the Bleach fandom is that Ichigo's Bankai might be, it's either passive or it's able to be activated, being, you know, the ability to transcend fate. Now, that's if we even give it to him in this hypothetical. Like, it's very clear that would purely be skepticism and theory going on here, but that aside, like, it's a terrible matchup for Ichigo within the way that the series has portrayed all three of those characters with their power. And I guess all in all, when it really comes down to things, there's just too much Aizen downplay, and there is far too much misinformation repeated about the character. There's not even a single thing that Ichigo has to break out of Kyoka Suigetsu if he's under it too. I'll give you the craziest example ever. So, this is a bit debatable, but essentially, pre-Almighty Yhwach is put under Kyoka Suigetsu. Yhwach gets his Almighty back and all of his powers, including the Soul King powers. When he faces Aizen, he is still under Kyoka Suigetsu. That is even after Ichibe fully rewrites his character, and then he self-revives, and he was conceptually manipulated at that stage. Ichibe pretty much did this. He's like, you are now the power of an ant. Yhwach returns his powers, meaning his whole body's being refreshed. Doesn't make a difference. When he faces off against Aizen later in the series in a much stronger form, he's still under Kyoka Suigetsu. It's like having this eternally unmovable piece of gum that's on your boot, and no matter what you do, it is just conceptually tied to your shoe. Like, that is how
it's just a part of you. It's a part of your being, like, to the point where even if, like, you're rewritten, like, more power nulled, yeah, it just doesn't change it. It's still there. Like, and dude, Yhwach doesn't just get, like, he gets rewritten by Ichibe, it's still there. And then the Soul King, like, arguably, like, rewrites him again. The Soul King has its own being. And then the Kyoka just plagues the Soul King essence rather than the Soul King essence just rewriting him. Like, that's how crazy it is. Like, and that also, by the way, Kyoka Suigetsu, you know, the novels are like whatever, but if they're used in like non-contradictory supplemental ways, it's alright, I guess. But Kyoka Suigetsu is based off of Aizen's spiritual pressure. That's why it's so potent and can work on strong people. That means while he's strapped to that chair, can't move, his spiritual pressure is so strong that the Soul King essence doesn't rewrite the ability. And then that's probably like a fraction of his full power, and that's why they start scrapping later. So that's sort of like that idea, like that's really how it's working in this interaction. Like there's not really a good reason why Ichigo would resist it. There's none.
You also reminded me too of two really annoying things Aizen can do, and that is the fact that he has every Kido in the series. Like, what does Ichigo do when he truly does fight, like, off his usual character, and he's like, nah, I'm just gonna, like, Riko Jokuro, like, seal you in place. I'm gonna put all these weird sealings that Urahara can do. I'm gonna, like, put you into the box of the Kurohitsugi. Like, I'm gonna actually go all out and try to kill you. Like, he's got, like, 100 attacks he's got to deal with, potentially. We also have this too. Because they are linearly comparable, what if Aizen just decides, fuck it, let's flex my power even higher. Let's activate this hypothetical Bankai. Doesn't matter what it does, we don't know what the power is, but we know that it would increase his power linearly because his flat transcendent spiritual pressure would get amped by the transformation, which is exactly what happens with Yamamoto when he goes Bankai. Because he's, like, loosely stated to be transcendent in Shikai, but then in Bankai, it's to a degree where his very spiritual pressure becomes invisible to everybody else. And it's like this flame of heat, which isn't even the fire itself, it's just his spiritual pressure. So he has that he could do too. Again, we don't know what the ability is, but the amp itself, considering this is Aizen, and it takes like 10 years to master a Bankai. If any character has mastered their Bankai off screen, it's going to be him. He did state that one of his main goals was to transcend that barrier and ceiling of what a Shinigami can do.
Right. He probably has that 4-step fully evolved Bankai like Shunsui and Yamamoto. Like, he probably does have like a crazy one, yeah.
And it's probably the case, I'll try not to go on too much about this, but it's probably just the case character-wise that whatever his Bankai's unique ability is, like let's say, for example, I don't know, like it is like some reality manipulation, or I don't know, maybe he can summon in the same way that, you know, Soifon's character is this, right? She's the stealthy 2-shot assassin, but then her Bankai is this explosive, exciting ability, right? Being the energy she has when she's around Yoruichi. What if Aizen's Bankai is more a reflection of his real self, and it's a lot different to Kyoka Suigetsu? It might be an ability that he either dislikes or he doesn't want to show to people. So that's probably why we never saw it and why it was kind of...
It could be a Bankai. It could be like something like, you know, his deep down desire to understand people, you know, as well, or like to rival people. Like, what if it's like a power mimicry? Like, there's so many weird things it could be, you know, realistically. But that being said, that is the majority of what there is to talk about. Aizen wins both battles. The first battle, just pretty objective. Urahara wasn't there. Ichigo passes it out. Aizen kills him. Like, no debate. There's nothing Ichigo can do anymore. Second battle, obviously there's some more weird stuff going on. There's more like complicated things, but realistically, it should probably be worse than their first battle because Ichigo's not going to Mugetsu like that. So,
and we also know too, like let's just say for a minute, we're like, it, we'll just let him do it. It's the same outcome. Like,
Yep.
but Urahara can't save him.
Yeah, but that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out Clyde and I's Akatsuki versus Espada video. We also made Aizen versus 99% of Fiction, Aizen versus JJK, and Clyde has a very great breakdown on Captain Aizen, which is a very overlooked side of Aizen's power. We kind of teased a little bit in this video, but it's very interesting how strong Captain Aizen actually is, and yeah, it's got a certain flavor to it.
So in that video, I don't necessarily go into this Aizen, like, because this is war specific, but I do show how narratively he is already in, like, the high tier caliber, just based upon what we see in the Soul Society arc and also during the Karakura Town conflict. So I hope you all enjoy that if you check it out. In general, thanks for having me on once again. These past few collabs that we've done have felt very informative and really fun just to be a part of. I hope you guys enjoyed them too. Everybody in the comments, you know, leave your thoughts on the video. Tell us what you think. Please like the video, physically subscribe to Seth, and once more, thank you for having me on.
Yep. Hope you all have a good day, and God bless.